As more and more writers are becoming interested in writing and publishing books, more and more scammers are coming onto the market interested in taking their money and trying to take advantage of them in a vulnerable situation. So how do you make sure you don't fall victim to one of the publishing or literary agent scams? Today I am going to talk about some of the scams that have been circulating around and really how to tell if you are speaking with a legit literary agent. Now in this video today I am going to mainly be talking about scams with people presenting themselves as literary agents to people who are trying to get representation to be traditionally published. However, it is really important to know that there are a ton of scams, potentially even more scams out there, geared toward people who are looking to become self-published. If you are on that track, definitely be on the lookout for scams as well, but today we are going to focus on literary agent scams specifically. Writers who don't fully understand really how the traditional book publishing process works can be especially vulnerable to these types of scams, so that's why it really pays to educate yourself and learn as much as you can about the industry, and hopefully my channel can help you do that. I have all types of videos about how the traditional publishing process works, what a literary agent does, how a book goes through from submission to publication. So definitely check out my channel and subscribe if any of that interests you. So with that, let's talk through some of the scams that you might see if you are on the hunt for a literary agent. The first scam is if an agent charges an upfront fee to work with them. This is a major red flag, and frankly, you should just completely steer clear of whoever is presenting this to you, because a legitimate literary agent is never ever going to charge any type of upfront fee. They're not going to charge any type of retainer or signing fee. Any language like that means you need to look elsewhere. That is because the arrangement with a literary agent is very standard and straightforward across the entire industry, and that is the agent is going to take 15% of any advance that you get as part of your book deal or your royalties that you eventually earn on your book once it is published. There really isn't any other type of arrangement. There really isn't even any other type of percentage. It is standard 15%. Now, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about how book deals are structured and what you can expect those terms to be in a contract with a major publishing house, I recommend checking out my video that goes into exactly how a book deal works and what it looks like. The second scam that you might see with someone posing as a literary agent is if they are asking you to pay for their editing services. When an agent signs with a client, they are really intending to work with them to get their book ready to submit to editors at publishing houses. They are ready to take on that project, and they are agreeing to do that work with you. So there is really no scenario in which you are going to be paying the literary agent for anything, including editing, because again, all that work is wrapped up in the 15% that they are eventually going to take once they do sell your book to a publishing house. If an agent reads through your manuscript and maybe is interested in your book but thinks it needs a little bit more work, it is possible that they will do what we call a revise and resubmit. So what this is they give you some constructive feedback. They say, work on X, Y, and Z. And then once you do that, come back to me and query me again, and maybe I will, agree to represent you at that point once those revisions have been done. That's all to say that if an agent thinks there needs to be substantial revisions, that's what they're going to ask you to do. They're not going to ask you to pay them in order to take on the project of editing your manuscript. That is going to be part of the process and part of your collaboration once you begin working together. The next red flag is if a literary agent contacts you out of the blue. This is more likely than not a scam, unfortunately. And that is because the vast majority of agents acquire their clients through the traditional submission process. So this is you writing a query letter and attaching your sample pages and then sending that out to literary agents who you would hope to work with. The agent then reviews their submissions and responds to those people that they are interested in. Now, there are more writers out there looking for a literary agent than there are literary agents, so that imbalance really results in agents having people coming to them, and in most cases they don't need to go seek out writers themselves. So that's why it really is highly unlikely that an agent would be the one reaching out to you, and most likely this is someone trying to scam you into into thinking that they're a literary agent, and then they're ultimately going to try to take money from you. Now, there is one exception to this rule. It is possible that an agent would reach out to you, and that would be if you have published articles in newspapers or magazines, or you have published stories in literary journals. If they came across those articles or those stories and they really liked your writing style, it is entirely possible that the agent could reach out to you and say, hey, I read your work in X publication, and I'm wondering if you have a book project because I would love to maybe talk about representation. That definitely does happen. I have seen that happen. However, they would be very specific in saying, I read your piece in this magazine or this newspaper or this literary journal. They're not going to be just coming at you out of the blue without referencing that. So it should be very clear who is legit and who is not. And of course, if someone does reach out to you presenting themselves as a literary agent, you will want to Google their name, look up their website, and make sure you vet it and make sure everything looks legit and that they have a real online presence. If they don't, then that is immediately going to signal that they are illegitimate. Another scam that people posing as literary agents will use is pushing you toward a specific publisher or making a strong recommendation on exactly where and how you publish your book. So with a legitimate literary agent, it is really in their best interest and your best interest for them to submit to many different publishers, or at least a handful of different publishers. And that is because they want to get you a competitive offer. Then that most likely will up the price of the sale, and then they get a higher commission and you get more money for your book too. So that's really how they approach their work. They're going to submit your book to multiple different publishers and then ask for deals and ask for offers. They're really not going to push you just toward one, because that would really be limiting your options and limiting your opportunities for a book deal. Now, an agent very well might say, hey, I think that this imprint at this publishing house would be a great fit, or let's make a list of our top 5 that we really, really hope will make you an offer. Definitely those types of conversations will be had. However, if they're using language like, you should really publish with, this publishing house, and you look it up and it's not an imprint of the big 5, it's kind of unclear from the website really what they've published and how much those books have sold, most likely that is a scam where the literary agent is actually posing as a form of a vanity publisher, where they are going to ask you to pay some type of crazy fee in order to publish the book, and then they're not going to do anything with it. They're going to print some copies and they're not going to distribute it or anything like that. So if you get any sense that they're pushing you toward one of these illegitimate vanity publishers, steer clear. That is not how a legitimate agent will operate. And the last literary agent scam is if they're making you unrealistic promises. So you know the saying, if it's too good to be true, it most likely is. And this can be really, really hard, because most likely you see an agent come into your inbox and you're so excited to get a response, but you really need to check yourself and make sure that you're not getting scammed. So if they make any types of claims like, you are guaranteed to become a bestseller, if they say something like, I'm definitely going to get you a film contract, or I'm definitely going to sell the book internationally and have it be published across the world. All of those promises really signal that that's someone who's trying to persuade you and sway your opinion. That is not someone who is giving you a realistic view of the industry, and it is not someone who is operating in a legitimate way in the publishing industry. Because the hard truth and the fact of the matter is, a literary agent cannot even guarantee you a publishing deal at all. So that might be a bit of a shocker. So let me explain. Just because a literary agent is taking you on and agreeing to work with you and try to submit your book to publishing houses, that's all they can do. There is no guarantee that the publishing house is actually going to make you a deal. So any agent that is saying, I'm definitely going to get you X, I'm definitely going to get you Y, I'm definitely going to get you Z, is not someone who you want to work with. Because the reality is, maybe all of the publishers reject your book. That does happen. And what happens in that case is the agent will come back to you and say, okay, I got this feedback from this editor, this feedback from this editor. Let's go back to the manuscript. Let's work on it together. Again, go through that editing process, that collaborative process with the agent, and then potentially resubmit it to those editors. Or maybe let's work on your next novel and then revisit this one in a year or two. They're going to troubleshoot with you like that if you do not actually get a publishing deal. But again, going back to the point, they cannot guarantee a deal at all. So any types of unrealistic promises that you see someone coming at you with, you need to respond with a rejection. So I wanted to give you a few quick tips for how to ensure that a literary agent you're talking to is legit. The first is to check out Publishers Marketplace. This is an industry publication where every single book deal by a major publishing house, as well as some of the big indie houses, is announced. So it'll say this editor just bought this book from this agent and it's by this author. All of that information is going to be there, and that's where all the book deal announcements are made. Now, unfortunately, this is a paid service, so I would only go that route if you are really getting close to signing with a literary agent and you want to make sure, just check all your boxes that they're legit, and you want to see what books that they've sold. It might be worth paying for it at that point, but otherwise you have other options. And that is, again, to check out their website and take note of all of the authors that they've claimed to work with and all of the books that they have claimed to help get published. Then what you're gonna do is either A, go to the bookstore and find those books, and then go into the back of the acknowledgements page and see if the author has mentioned that agent. The vast majority of authors are going to thank their agent in the acknowledgements page. So if the agent is claiming to represent this author and then you go to that acknowledgement page and someone else is referenced or that agent is not referenced, then you might be a little bit skeptical. Another option is to just Google the author's name. So the agent says, I represent Jane Doe. You're gonna Google Jane Doe and her book, find her author website. Again, the vast majority of authors have up-to-date websites, and then go to her either contact or representation part of her website, and it is going to most likely have her literary agent listed there as well, because most authors field a lot of inquiries through their literary agent, and they will have that information on their website, so you can verify, oh yes, it looks like that agent represents that author and they are legit. So I hope that these tips help you sort out the legitimate literary agents from the scam artists, and I really hope they help you along the querying journey so that you can ultimately pursue your dreams of getting traditionally published. Let me know in the comments below if you've run into any of these issues or any other types of publishing scams. I'm really trying to stay on top of all of this so that I can come back and give you all the up-to-date advice. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how different literary agencies work and are structured, check out my video on the different types of literary agencies. That can also be a bit of a confusing part of the process when you're vetting and looking up literary agents, so I recommend checking that out. And if you find this content helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot to me, and I would love to have you around to talk all things publishing. Thanks so much for watching, and happy writing.